Rotarian friends from across the island and Club of Phoenix, Rotaractors of Phoenix, distinguished panel members, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I have enormous pleasure to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Phoenix Annual Forum on Global Affairs. This is an initiative that was launched last year by the club on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the UN, when we debated the topic that was presented at the time was UN reforms. And this year we come to you with an as interesting subject, impacts of climate change. I'm sure this topic is of interest to all of us present here. A lot more people. We're expecting a number of guests. I suppose we have a parking problem around in Gymkhana, so we will be having more people joining us as the evening goes by. So without much ado, I will invite our president, Chandru Hasamal, for a few words of welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. PDG, Pochava, Rotarians, and guests. Welcome to our annual forum on global affairs. Actually, tonight's we are going to talk on climate change, also called global warming. It refers to the rise in average surface temperature on Earth. This issue is the least discussed and probably least understood by politicians all over the world. For example, not one question about climate change was asked during the presidential debates in the US. We have many questions. Is global warming real? Why is climate change happening? What is the evidence for global warming? Is global warming caused by human activity? These are questions which we are always asking, and today our panel will definitely enlighten us about these issues. So, dear guests, welcome to our forum. I'm sure after the discussion, we have many questions for the panel. Thank you.
Officially welcoming you all here and thanking you for being here, and also thanking our distinguished panelists for agreeing to, for accepting our invitation to come and talk about climate change tonight. Let me just give you an idea of how we intend to proceed. So we will start with an overview of the scientific aspects of climate and of climate change. We will then be looking at the impact of climate change on development, on sustainable development, and then we will have an overview of international negotiations, past negotiations, current negotiations, and future negotiations on climate change. And we have, as I said, a distinguished panel. They are all experts in their fields, and they will provide you with all their technical expertise. But before we do that, I would just like, by way of introductory remarks, just highlight some of the global issues that are part of this debate on climate change. Some of you might have heard on TV last week that, so you probably watched the news last week, a report on the lack of certain brands of tea in Mauritius. And in that report, one of the producers said that this is because of climate change. Now, this is probably not the most important aspect of climate change, but I want to start with this because it was in the news last week. Now, I don't know to what extent this is true or not, but this just gives you an indication of the kind of debate we have today about climate change. So I hope that what we are going to do tonight is to look at some more important questions and probably also address the issue as to whether climate change has got anything to do with the fall in tea production in Mauritius, but we will have to see what are the real issues and what are some of the collateral issues that are also probably important for the future. Let me just say that globally the debate about climate change has been going on for a very long time. In fact, one very convenient starting point would probably be 1972 when we had the Stockholm conference. And since then, it's been talked about at the UN and elsewhere for many, many years. There has been the traditional North-South divide on this debate, the divide between developing and developed countries, because the interests were not necessarily the same. Although I must say that over the years there has been a change in the attitude of many developed countries, largely because of the pressure that governments in certain developed countries were under from green parties, from NGOs, environmental NGOs, and from public opinion. But there was still one major industrialized state which was opposed to any agreement on climate change because of the internal debates within that country on climate change. And it was very much of an ideological debate within that country. And of course, you know that I'm talking about the US. There were the so-called climate deniers within the US, and these were mainly the Republicans. The Democrats had a different view. You must all have heard of the well-known movie which Al Gore made on climate change sometime back, called An Inconvenient Truth. But Republicans in general were denying the fact that there was an issue, and certainly denying the fact that this was man-made. As Chandru said just now, there is a debate as to the extent to which climate change results from anthropogenic factors, that is man-made factors, or whether that was part of the sort of natural cycle of climate throughout history. But there was a major change, or at least looks like a major change, in December last year, when President Obama took the lead at the Paris conference, and the US tried to position itself as a champion of climate change. Even if this was not a real change in attitude, but the optics looked good that the US had moved on this issue. But otherwise, I think it's fair to say that the US was not the only one opposed to climate change. In fact, there was a very sort of odd team players on this matter, because it was not the traditional North-South divide. Because you also had countries like India and China, which in effect proposed a lot of changes, because these were the newly emerging economies, and they didn't want to commit themselves to introducing new technology and to reducing emissions, because they were worried that this would stifle their growth. Their belief was that if other countries have managed to reach an advanced stage of development by using certain technologies and so on, if the newcomers were to use a different technology which would be more costly, then it would not be a sort of level playing field, because they would have to compete on terms which are different from those which governed development in the past. So you had this sort of odd combination of states like US and China being some of the main players resisting international agreements on climate change, but there was some movement in December last year, and since then there has been another agreement only 2 weeks ago on hydro. Need the help of my technical friends here to get the right term. HCF, whatever it stands for, I suppose they will tell you later what it is. And it's the gas from household equipment like fridges and so on, which contribute to a large extent to climate change. So there was an agreement in Kigali 2 weeks ago on this. Later, one of the panelists will be talking about international agreements. Let me conclude these introductory remarks by just highlighting, this is all I intend to do, and then leave it to the panel to expand on this. Just highlight some of the issues that have been part of this international debate over the years. I would, in very simple terms, sum up this international debate by saying that the two main issues were, first, how we can keep temperature rise to 2 degrees or even less, at 1.5 degrees. That was the main thrust of the global debate over the years. And the second main issue in the global debate was about adaptation and mitigation measures. Because there are things you can do for the future to prevent temperature from rising above 1.5 or above 2 degrees. But also, there are consequences of climate change already. So how do you adapt to whatever has taken place already, or how do you mitigate the consequences of the impacts of climate change? So globally, that was the debate, and this is still very much part of the debate on climate change. And one essential component of this global debate has been the impact of climate change on small island states. Because for small island states, climate change is in fact an existential threat. And it's not just a hypothetical threat, because there are some Pacific islands, for example, which are already submerged. The Solomon Islands, for instance, has got about 6 of its islands which are now totally submerged. They don't exist anymore. So there are various issues concerning small island states. In our own part of the world, as you know, there is serious threat to the existence of some islands in the Maldives. And I know there are some legal friends in the room, so I just want to mention one very interesting and important legal issue with respect to some islands just disappearing from the map. It may look like a theoretical question, but it gives you an idea of how important and how serious the issue is. There was a seminar, a 1-week seminar at Columbia University on whether an island which disappears under the water can still be a state. Because if you look at the classical definition of state, it's a territory, it's a government, it's people. So you will still have the people, but they won't be living in that state, they will be living somewhere else. You may still have a government, it could be a government at any time, but you don't have a territory. So can you still be a state? You know, if we say that there are 193 members of the UN at the moment, are we going to have fewer than 193 members in the future? Because some states will just disappear. Or will these still be considered as states? You know, so there are serious issues. Another legal issue which has been debated in recent years, just to give you an idea of how important this is, it's the issue of climate refugees. You know, if your country disappears, where do you go? There has been a case already in New Zealand where people applied for refugee status, and the grounds for the application was that they are climate refugees because their islands in the Pacific have just disappeared. So anyway, I think I will stop here. This was supposed to be just introductory remarks, but you know, once you get me going on climate change, there's so much to say. I will obviously want to give the floor now to our panelists, and I'm sure that we can come back to some of these issues later in the course of the debate. So let me first introduce our panel. Yes, maybe. Yeah, I just want to show you a slide before I introduce one. This gives you an idea of what we are talking about when we talk about emissions, CO2 emissions, because this is one of the main causes of climate change, of global warming. This is a map from NASA. So I told you earlier about the stance of the US on this. So, you know, it's not, it cannot be doubted that this reflects the reality. So the different colors show the amount of emissions over the years. And as you can see, most emissions have taken place in the northern hemisphere. Almost everything is from there. The southern hemisphere has hardly contributed to global warming, because emissions have come from the north, and the reason why they've come from the north is because the north has more industrialized nations. Even the two emerging economies today, India and China, are also part of the northern hemisphere. So when we have this debate about climate change in global terms, we have to be able to sort of make sure that those countries which are not responsible for climate change do not have to bear the consequences and bear the cost of climate change, because this is what's happening today. You know, I talked about the existential threat to small island states. These small island states have not contributed to global warming at all. But the countries which are really responsible, you know, have to bear the brunt of the cost of dealing with climate change. This is why in the course of these negotiations we have come up with a new term in international negotiations, which stresses the need for common but differentiated responsibilities. There is a common responsibility of humanity as a whole to deal with climate change, but there are differentiated responsibilities because, as you can see, you know, this is self-evident that the main responsibility comes from certain countries only. So they have to have higher responsibilities with regard to climate change. Let me really stop here and introduce the panel. So I'll introduce the speakers in the order in which they will be addressing you. First, we have Dr. Binay Pathak, who is a former Deputy Director of the Mauritius Meteorological Services. Dr. Pathak has been working for the Meteorological Services for about 40 years. He's got a long experience and seen the evolution of climate change over the years. He also, very interestingly, spent 18 months in Diego Garcia. We've had a debate about Diego Garcia here in the past, and I'm sure one day we will be honored by his presence here and talking to us about Diego Garcia. So he studied meteorology at Florida State University in the US. He holds a BSc, an MSc, and a PhD from the University of Cape Town. And he's currently a part-time lecturer at the University of Mauritius. So he will be explaining really what we mean by climate change, and this will kick off the debate. We will then have Mr. Osman Mohammed, who is a civil engineer. He studied at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. He also has an MBA. He has been a civil and structural engineer in the private sector in Singapore for a number of years. He has also acted as an advisor to the government of Mauritius, and he was the head of the Maurice Iltiram project. And our first speaker will be Professor Tulsiram Ramjawar. He has been teaching at the University of Mauritius for the last 28 years. He's a professor of environmental engineering. He holds a diplôme d'ingénieur and a PhD. He's held a number of senior management positions at the University of Mauritius as head of the Department of Civil Engineering and Dean of the Faculty of Engineering. He's also acted as a technical advisor in environmental management to the Ministry of Environment, and he's done a lot of research work and has undertaken several management projects for international organizations. So we have all the experts here, and I'm sure that we will all have questions for them. So we'll invite our panelists to restrict their presentations to about 10 to 15 minutes so that we have enough time for discussions. Thank you. So, the first panelist then is Dr. Binay.
Change the slides. Okay, I'll try, but if it doesn't work. Okay, climate change, but first the hydrofluorocarbons and chlorofluorocarbons, I will not talk about those because they are part of the greenhouse gases and so on. I'll tell you a very simple story, maybe only 2 slides would have been enough. And I think everybody knows about global warming, climate change. You get confused and say, okay, it's not my business and I'm not to blame. But I would claim that we are to blame too. Not only China and the United States and Vladimir Putin, who is not, doesn't accept the climate change science and so on. Okay, climate change, global warming. We use them maybe synonymously very often. You can, but you should not. It's just one observation, say, okay, it is raining, oh, that's climate change. No tea in the market, that's climate change too. And that's climate change too. And there are 2 here, and you will see, you understand the hottest year on record, 2015, that has been there. It's not, it has been agreed that 2015 was the hottest year of the when since we have observations. And how far below this graph shows, just to show you the temperature, the relative temperature rise in the mean global surface temperature. The global warming, recent and ongoing rise in global average temperatures near Earth's surface. And you could be asking questions, okay, why on the Earth's surface and up in the atmosphere? We will never finish. Try to tackle those, all those details that I can't explain. Because mostly by increasing greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, there are several, but we'll mention probably only carbon dioxide and methane and probably water vapor, which is very important too. Global warming causing change in climate patterns, and this should make sense to you, I hope. And now, global warming, that's only one aspect of climate change. But you can say that climate change also is causing global warming in turn. And I'll try to explain that later on. And it goes on as a feedback loop. So let's see. Climate change refers to any significant change in measures, that is pressure, temperature, or temperature, precipitation, and wind, in wind patterns, wind direction, wind speed, at different levels of the atmosphere, especially at the surface. And can occur over time scales, different time scales, but usually large space and time scales. Rather long time scale and large space throughout the globe, all across the globe. Atmospheric general circulation impact on worldwide weather patterns. If I tell you in 10 seconds, or in 20 seconds maybe you understand, we get excess of energy along the equatorial belt. The sun is there most of the time. And the polar regions do not receive much energy. But they are stable. The cold regions are cold, whatever they are. Warm regions are warm. But there is excess of energy along the equatorial belt. So there should be a mechanism so that the excess is shared with the higher latitudes, that is with the mid-latitudes and the polar regions. And that happens with the atmospheric general circulation. We won't go in the physics of that, don't worry. We won't say second Newton's law and gas laws and so on and so forth. But we just agree with that, which the lower latitudes, that is higher share of energy, general heat energy from the sun, and that part is shared with the higher latitudes through general circulation. So you can maybe thinking that if we are changing the atmospheric circulation, we are changing the general circulation, then we are changing the way the sharing of the energy is happening. So that's it. I should stop here. That is what is global warming. So if we infect the atmosphere, that is, we load it with greenhouse gases, any number of slides we do that. But this is just how the carbon dioxide is also increasing. So you can see the correlation. Okay, statistical correlation, but we will try to explain it from a scientific, more scientific, statistics also, you can see science, but from a more scientific angle. Okay, and we talked about China and so on. They have emitting plenty of greenhouse gases, and United States and South America, and you can see so many parts of the world. And these appear to be innocent, but they are not. Well, from the gas emitting point of view, yes, they look like, but should they be blamed only? Well, I'll pause 10 seconds here to say that consumers like us, like me, like you, where does this come from? Where does this come from? The computer and so on, many things that we are using here, we are not producing them, but those countries like China is producing some, many countries and so on. So we are also emitting through them the carbon dioxide. What can we do and so on, that's I'm not going to talk, it will be a long story. So just to convince you that we are also, we form part of the people who should be blamed. Fluorine, whatever you see, we are using, so indirectly we are emitting those, that part of carbon dioxide, although not huge amounts, but still. Just going to the temperature itself in different countries, how the temperature has increased. So now I'll go quite fast because of time constraints, and you know already the global warming. So a little bit, a few words on the mechanism, how it is happening. I said, okay, the equatorial belt is receiving more heat than the high latitudes, and so on and so forth. The greenhouse effect, the greenhouse gases, you can see greenhouse here. It is very, very, very simple. It is like if we are injecting the carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere, and what is it doing? The energy coming from the sun, most of the energy we intercept on the surface of the earth is from the light, in the light spectrum. The light, when you put your arm in the sun, you feel the warmth, and it's the light directly coming from the sun. And some is reflected already, about 30% is reflected back to the atmosphere. From the top of the atmosphere, it is reflected from the sun, so you get 100%, and 70% comes into the atmospheric circulation. And plenty of it, about 40-42%, comes directly into light, so that's what Earth absorbs. So the Earth's surface is heated by the sun, and Earth's surface heats the atmosphere, and so on and so forth. Now, when it heats the atmosphere, the sunlight that we are getting is a different kind of radiation, electromagnetic radiation, that is not absorbed by the atmosphere. But the radiation emitted by the Earth is trapped, is intercepted by the gases in the atmosphere, like carbon dioxide, not nitrogen, oxygen, but carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, and whole lots of CFCs, HFCs, and so on and so forth, nitrous oxide. Let's say carbon dioxide, focus on that. So it's the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere stays very long time in the atmosphere before it settles down or goes into the sea and so on and so forth. It is like you're in your bedroom and you're feeling cold. You put one blanket on, you cover one more blanket, you feel warmer. So okay, it's still cold inside. You put another blanket. You feel warmer. You are not putting any heat or nothing, just putting the blanket. Because your body's heat is heating the blanket and the heat stays there back and forth, just like this greenhouse effect. So the heat is in between the blanket, the carbon dioxide, and us on the earth. And that's all about global warming. And when it traps the heat, it stays in the atmosphere and doesn't go back into space. And this is another I found it nice and to show. Now, that's all for global warming, climate change, and so on. Expected impacts worldwide. You can expect scientists. I'm not that level scientist, but it is expected that heavier rainfalls in many parts of the world, but the periods between the rains will be warmer and therefore drier. A number of hurricanes, tropical cyclones may fall, maybe not. But ones that do manage to occur, to develop, will draw more energy because the sea surface is also warming, so it will draw more energy from the sea surface into the atmosphere, into the cyclone engine. So they might become more fierce, more strong. Okay, coastal flooding because of the expansion of the water in the oceans and melting of ice because of warming. That's another problem. We'll see if we can cover that one also, but let me go closer because I was asked to stick to the Southwest Indian Ocean area, Mauritius area. From the meteorological services, Mauritius Meteorological Services, data compiled have also confirmed the increase in temperature, although small in magnitude, but the impact is very, very big, can be very big. Decrease of rainfall per decade, about 57 millimeters, that has been observed. Whether it will continue or not, I don't know. Other domains that I will not cover here, and coral reefs, warming of the sea, destroying coral reefs, acidification of the ocean waters, and fresh water, and lack of fresh water, or excess maybe fresh water, water resources, ecosystems affected, agriculture affected, and it goes on in many domains. This is the most important. It is very easy to understand why the small amounts, okay, we said 50 millimeters per decade decrease in rainfall. That's nothing. Sometimes up, sometimes down. But this is the most important that I want to focus. So for a second, just take this graph. This is a normal bell curve. And you have, suppose the temperature here, the average temperature is in here, whatever value, and within the average, normal curve here. Don't focus on this yellowish, reddish curve here, except for this part. Okay, so when we have average plus average something minus average something, it's okay. This one also is okay up to here. This one we are not considering here. So this is normal weather. We get a cyclone, we get an extreme event. We come here. Okay, we do get it, but in the normal curve, we do get cyclones, we do get drought or something like that. But there are a number of droughts and cyclones we are getting at the normal condition. We take the average temperature now, this one, we slide it a little bit to the right. It is exaggerated here, but just a little bit to the right. What happens to the same that's occurring? That will occur many more times. So the extremes in this graphical illustration is the extremes, the number of cases, the extremes might increase. And you can flatten it like this, the average stays the same. It could be the cold extremes or the hot extremes and so on. So whatever you fill with the mean, it will have repercussions on the extremes. Feedbacks. That was the main one that I wanted to convey, that I wanted to share with you. Feedback loops, I give you one or two examples, and I said at some time that the equatorial belts receive lots of energy and lack of energy in the high latitudes, and sharing of energy. But why the polar regions are cold? Because the sun never shines straight, normal to in the high latitudes and in the polar regions. It is reflected at an angle. Suppose this is it, and the sun's rays go like this. And the most important thing is that if I tell you that if there are no ice in the polar regions, in the summer pole, the pole which is in summer, the temperatures would have been higher than over the equatorial regions, because the number of hours of sunlight will be much more, and it will be absorbed there. The temperatures in the poles could have been higher. Now, having said that, suppose there is melting of ice in the polar regions. From the polar regions, the ice melts. It becomes, right now, as it is like a mirror. The sun's rays go like this, and they are reflected. And that's why the polar regions, the main region that the polar regions are cold. And if the ice melts, what will happen? It will absorb the heat. So that will also cause a disbalance in the sharing of energy. So that will also cause more global warming, and that's what we call the feedback loops. Another feedback loop is where more air temperature increases, it can hold more moisture in the atmosphere, and that goes exponentially actually. And the weather regime will become very chaotic. I cannot tell how and so on, but these are the ideas, the physical ideas behind global warming and what could happen. There is some uncertainty, of course, but do we take the uncertainty into account? Yes, but up to a certain degree. We should see what we have to take care of that problem. Thank you very much.
Bring a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll be sitting here now, hope you don't mind. And I will be mostly talking about where I left in December 2014 when I was chairing at the Prime Minister's Office, the Commission on Sustainable Development, as it is termed here, indigenously termed, and that was before I stepped in the last general elections for PA. Now, this morning itself, I was watching BBC News and they show a cliche of the 7th billion baby that was born. So that was in India, a baby girl. The parents didn't know what was happening. BBC, they panicked. So that was a 7th billion baby. And I'm not too sure how long ago it is back. But the point I'm trying to make here is population, development, although there are a lot of debates on it, does definitely impact on climate change. Because in order to feed, in order to produce things, Dr. Pata gave the example of the laptop just now, we need to use energy, and energy is, when you use energy, you use coal and other fossil fuel, it does emit greenhouse gas emission is there, and it contributes to global warming. Now, when I was in office, there was also a saying that we are now living in a planet where we are supposed to have 1.5 planet to satisfy our needs. Just to give an idea how small our planet has become to accommodate the global population. And when climate change occurs, there is also a saying that although Mauritius produce only 0.02% of greenhouse gases, but there is also a saying that there is a reverse Pareto. You know that 80-20% rule? Now, 80% of the gas is not emitted by countries like us, small island developing states and developing countries, but they are emitted by developed countries. However, 80% of the consequences are faced by us. because we are more vulnerable. We are small and we are surrounded by the sea, to give one example, and several other factors. I was watching the other day how countries that are more affected than us, like Bangladesh, where you can see the land loss, territory loss because of the sea level rise going on. You can actually see it. They show you how, when the wave comes in, it's eroding land away because of sea level rise, to quote one of the effect. The tea example is another one. Now, what does a small country like Mauritius, where we live on, how do we adapt, how do we mitigate in such situation? This is, I believe, a question that we need to talk about as well. Now, Milan mentioned about international conferences. I do recall we had two of them together. Now, Rio Plus 20 in 2012, and more recently in 2014, the Samoa Conference, which was 4 small island developing states. How do they achieve sustainable development? Meaning, how do we develop, how do we survive by reconciling the environment, economic development, and also the social landscape in the country? Because not everybody has the same chance to development. Now, if you have a lot of poor people in the country, environmental protection is not of their concern. If you go to Africa, they will cut the forest to burn, to cook daily food. So we don't have such problem here, but we need to cater for one and all so that we can actually protect the environment. Now, Rio Plus 20, for example, has recognized the green economy as one of the vehicles that is needed to achieve sustainable development. Now, and international development partners are always there to assist. Now, I can name several of them. For example, Agence Française du Développement, the United Nations, the European Union delegation, JICA, so on and so forth. But many of them, they do not actually give you money, because I'm supposed to learn about the funding as well. They don't actually give you cash, but they give you assistances, like technical assistance and technology transfer to coal better fuel. Not everybody is happy about that. Now, I do recall I was in one conference in the UN headquarters in New York, and sitting next to me was an ambassador from Kiribati, one lady. Maybe you can remember the name right now. Milan was our permanent representative at the United Nations. She said that development partners has given her country so much technical assistance that there are enough reports at the office to have allowed her not to take the plane, but to actually drive on these reports to the United Nations. So this is the kind of issues that people talk about normally. Our own funding is important. Funding is the engine for green economy. And here in Mauritius, we've put such a mechanism in order to allow us to drive the green economy forward. And I can quote one of them, which is still around, and I'm not too sure for how long, the MID Fund. Now, what did we do when we charted across Maurice Iljuha? Is to put across a mechanism that will allow us to fuel development so as we do it in a sustainable manner. So we actually charge a levy on every kilogram of coal and every liter of fossil fuel that goes into our cars, and this is cut by the government, and it actually used to fund projects that actually allow us to mitigate and adapt to environmental threats, climate change being one of them. So, and together with Professor Ramjawan and the team at the University of Mauritius, what we did was we produced a green economy assessment for Mauritius. That was in 2014, but before that we had the MID action plan as well, which has a lot of projects. What, for us, a country like Mauritius, does the green economy means? Maybe this is a topic I would like to explain a little bit. So, we have identified 7 sectors that will allow us to develop in a sustainable manner. I'm not too sure whether it's clear what I'm saying, but the 7 sectors that we had identified was energy, because it has a very important role to play. Agriculture, tourism, transportation, manufacturing, the water sector and the waste sector. So those 7 sectors were identified as pillars in order for us to become a green economy. An economy that would mitigate and adapt to threats, climate change being one of them. Now, I will very briefly talk about those 7 sectors, if time allows. Yeah. What do we do in energy? We go for energy efficiency so that we do not emit greenhouse gas emission. We do solar water heaters, we use low consumption bulbs, CFL bulbs. We go for wind turbines. There is one in the north now at Glenderoche, the big fans. That was a project that was conceived these days, but now churning. We have solar photovoltaic farms. We are producing, one of the few countries in this part of the world, electricity from our waste at Marsh Coast, which started in 2012. Now, what is it about? One very important greenhouse gas is methane. When we put all our waste at Marsh Coast, we do not see it, but there is a gas that comes out of this landfill. And methane is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and it contributes a lot to greenhouse gas emission. But methane, fortunately for humanity, is a gas that can be flared, that can be burned to produce electricity. So this is one innovative way that we went for, and today we are producing electricity, and we are recognized by the UN FCCC, because this is a carbon credit project, and we get money for having undertaken such a project, and it is paid on the kilowatt hour that we produce. And there are several other examples. We are going to produce air conditioning in the town of Port Louis using cold water, so that goes back to then, but now actually happening, because there's a lot of studies to be done, and well, I'm here, I will express my views. If the administrative part of the Mauritius goes out of Port Louis, I think it will impact on the critical mass of this project, because there won't be enough building for them to cool. This is my view, but the experts are there to tell us. Now, agriculture is one important sector. We heard about the tea storages now, but then crops have been up and down, and we need to, food security is an important issue. Food security definitely is one, and for a small island like ours, I think it's part of the green economy, because it creates jobs. When I was in office, we used to say that people are leaving the agricultural sector because they aspire for other kind of jobs. But in a country where 16,000 people, or rather 8,000 people do not have CBE, and 16,000 no HSE, I go for the CBE people. 8,000 people is a huge base for us to have been able to develop our agricultural sector further, because going forward is going to reduce in yield, and we need more people to grow. Now, tourism as well, and tourism is one sector where it has a lot of impact on the environment, but if we do not do whatever it needs to be done. We don't protect our beaches, the reprofiling, and our lagoons. I think we are not going to have so many tourists that it's going to be attracted to our country in the future. So this is one sector that we identified together when we did our assessment in University of Mauritius, and I think we need to work a lot on this. Now, transportation. Transportation is one of the biggest emitter of greenhouse gas around the world and even in Mauritius. With 1.4 people on average traveling to office every day in their cars because people didn't have any passengers with them. We discussed a lot then in government, and well, for several years even before I came into office. And the Metro Léger was one project that was identified as a project that is energy efficient and that will transport a lot of people without having so many cars going into other parts of the country and emitting carbon dioxide and all these gases. Now, I think it's a good decision that Metro Léger has become Metro Express. It's actually it's a lot of work, a lot of years of work, and a lot of funding that has gone into the conception of this project. And I think even we are going for new technology, we are going for new number of stations and a different routing, plus or minus. I hope we get there someday. Manufacturing is also one sector that pollutes a lot. Water, waste, energy consumption, and we have worked a lot with the United Nations for resource efficiency and cleaner production program. So I hope the present government continue with this, because very preliminary works had shown us that with simple things in the industry, we can go for billions of rupees of savings in resource consumption. And I'm here talking about energy and water. So waste, finally. Waste has now become a resource because, like I said earlier, it is used to produce electricity using landfill gas, and also there are other projects like pyrolysis and ultra-high temperature gasification, where you can actually use the waste to produce electricity. And we have been using our waste also for composting industrially. So I talk a lot about waste because it has a lot of impact on climate change. Dr. Buffett will surely agree with me because of the methane gas. Now, these are a few points I wanted to raise. And now, what is the role of government in all this? Now, you can view the green economy like a car. The driving seat is the government, and the priority seats are for the poor to get them out of the poverty trap. And the engine to drive green economy is funding. And I mentioned about the sources of funding just now. I was expected to talk about it. So there are some that give you money, very few. You need to generate your own money as a country. But technical assistance and technology transfer is always there. And the dashboard is the indicator of how we are faring with time. In 2014, for the first time, Mauritius was ranked in the Global Green Economic Index. We were perceived to be 34th, but actually based on facts, we were ranked 23rd. So we were doing quite well compared to other countries, because we do things and we were communicating as well. So people knew what we were doing. So communication also is very important, just like we're doing tonight. So on these few words, I'll thank you for your attention, and I'll catch up with you later.
Mauritius. I'll start with this quotation by President Barack Obama, just to show the urgency. That we are the first generation to feel, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change, and the last generation that can do something about it. Just to show the urgency, okay, that we are the generation that has to do something. If we don't do it, okay, we are in a serious problem. Next slide, please. So quickly, okay, I think we have already talked about the scientific and political context. I talked mainly about the main outcomes and what are the opportunities for Mauritius. Next slide. Now, 2015 has been a landmark for the United Nations. Historians, I think, when they will look back, future historians will look back, because 2015 was a hinge point in history. But we had two major agreements. One was the Sustainable Development Goals. That was in 25th September 15. So these are the dates I think people should remember. 25th September 15. 195 countries ratified the Sustainable Development Goals. And on 12 December 15, was the Paris Agreement. I think these are two major dates that future historians will look, when they look back, they will say it was a hinge point in history. It was a major success for the United Nations, okay, 2015. The Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement on climate change. Slide. Okay, the Sustainable Development Goals, quickly, there are 17 of them. With a set of 169 detailed targets. One of them, goal 13, is about climate change. Action. You need to take action on climate change because it is connected to all the other goals. If you don't tackle climate change, I mean, you won't achieve sustainable development. It's as simple as this. And they're all interconnected, all these goals. Of course, each goal is important, but they're all interconnected. And it's like, but we need to move fast on climate change. Because this one, if we don't move fast, we won't achieve all the other goals. So this is the importance of the other Paris Agreement. Okay, I think everybody's agreeable now that climate change is an inevitable fact. I mean, you look at the news, okay, it's the norm now. Let's look at the news, I mean, it's becoming the norm now. Because it's the record month, the record year. Okay, if you look at the last 16 years from 2001, 15 of the warmest years have occurred since 2001. The average, it was in the news I think yesterday, the average CO2 concentration has hit 400 parts per million. It keeps increasing. And the safe level is said to be around 350 ppm, so we have the CO2 concentration is increasing. It's fine. And, okay, these are, if you go on global warming art, you can see all these interesting photographs. They compare the glaciers. Okay, that's what was 1941 in Alaska. Can we have a photo now? It's the same. Okay, the same shot. Okay, it's the melting of the glaciers, and this is how it looks now. It's an interesting photograph like this. It compares what was the glacier in the 1940s, and then what's the comparison now. You can see this contrast. Okay, it's really alarming. It's fine. Okay, so Mauritius, I don't know, maybe one day. Short together. Okay, if you keep on going like this, okay, this level rise is a fact. I think if you measure it around, I think been able to correctly, it's about 2 millimeters per year. Okay, that's what they're measuring in terms of sea level rise. Right. Okay, so there's a history regarding climate change climate negotiations, started in 1992. That was when the framework convention was devised. There's been a number of important meetings. But what is important is that in 2009 there was Copenhagen. This was a failure. It was a complete failure, okay, in terms of climate change negotiations. Why many people were very pessimistic about Paris? Okay, it failed because there was not that burden sharing between developed and developing countries. Okay, there was that division between developed and developing countries. Okay, and Copenhagen failed because there was not that burden sharing between all the countries, and it failed. So people were very pessimistic about Paris, but it was a surprise. It was a big success. Paris, I would say, was a big success. Okay, again, just to compare between developing and developing countries, the per capita emissions. Okay, how much emissions that compare developing nations compared to developed nations. Mauritius would be around 4. This is what we emit per year. 4 tons of CO2 per year. Okay, based on your lifestyles, about 4 tons, etc. So there was that sticking point between developing and developed countries. Okay, developing said you have to do more. He said yes, but you're getting less, but you have larger population, so in terms of amount, it becomes the same. So everybody has to do the burden sharing. So next slide. So I think the French diplomacy, I think, was very good. I think I should congratulate the French diplomacy because they managed to have an agreement. So It marks an unprecedented political recognition of the risk of climate change. It was a big success. I think this is a landmark agreement because now we have a framework where we can move. Okay? Because I'll tell you later on, because time is critical now. We have to stop doing something, it's not going to be too late. Next. Okay, so the Paris Agreement, it enjoys overwhelming support. I mean, when it was open for signature on Earth Day, April, 175 countries signed it in one day. Okay, I think the previous agreement was law of the sea. Okay, the record number was law of the sea, 119. Now 175 countries signed the agreement on the Earth Day, 24th April. For it to be ratified, we needed 55 countries, okay, to ratify it, and accounting for at least 55% of global emissions. People thought that it would be ratified maybe in 2020, because Kyoto Protocol took 8 years to be ratified. So people thought that maybe this will take around 2-3 years. It has been ratified this month. So this forum is very fitting. The Paris Agreement was ratified this month. Okay, on 5th of October 2016. Okay, as of now, this is on the website today, 84 bodies have ratified the convention. So we've reached that threshold. So it will come into force in November. So the Paris Agreement is coming into force in November. Okay, people thought it will come in 2020. Okay, just to show that all the countries are coming together now. I think they've realized the importance of having an agreement on climate change. So record number of countries signing, it has been ratified, it's going to come into force this 4th of November 2016. Okay? So it's an incredibly quick adoption in the history of such agreements. Okay? And then the COP22 now will be a COP for action, which is good. Okay, so action is going to be taken at the next COP meeting in Marrakesh. It's going to happen in Marrakesh next month. So it's going now, we are implementing now the agreement. Okay, it will be about implementation of the agreement in Marrakesh next month. Okay, the main outcomes. Let me talk about the main outcomes of the Paris Agreement. It will have implications for Mauritius also. Maybe my personal view is that politicians, or maybe the general public are not really aware about the implication of this Paris Agreement. It's going to change the economy towards a green economy in the future. So, the Paris Agreement in a nutshell. There's a long-term goal, we talk about 2 degrees centigrade. If you go above 2 degrees centigrade, catastrophic consequences. So this is where we should limit the temperature to 2 degrees centigrade. But, thanks to the SIDS, it was called a high ambition coalition, with the SIDS and the ACP. They say that 2 degrees is not enough, we should put it at 1.5. So thanks to the figure you see there, 1.5 degrees centigrade, this is thanks to the SIDS, the small islands. They say 2 degrees is not really ambitious, we should put it at 1.5 because there are existential threats there for some small islands. So we should put it at 1.5. So that 1.5 degrees centigrade was put because of the pressure of the SIDS, okay, and the ACP countries called the high ambition coalition. So we have a goal. That's our mission. Our mission is to keep the temperature within 2 degrees centigrade, okay, and pursue efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade. This is very ambitious. Okay, it's a tall order. Okay, it implies profound changes in the economy. Okay, I'm going to come back to this. Okay, about that 2 degrees centigrade limit. And then it's not enough. But what we agreed also in Paris is that to achieve the temperature goal of 2 degrees, the greenhouse gas emission should peak as soon as possible and rapidly reduce thereafter, so that we're at a balance between emissions and sink in the second half of the century. As from 2050, the net CO2 emissions should be 0. This is what we agreed in Paris. I think many politicians are not really aware of exactly what has been signed. In 2050, there should be a net 0 emissions of CO2. The implication of this, and we talk about it. So this is not what has been agreed. Basically what it means, no fossil fuel. As from 2050. This is what happens. Okay, we move away from fossil fuel economy, we move toward a green economy. So this is what has been agreed. Another thing that has been agreed is that to get everybody on board, okay, we say that each country has to produce what we call nationally determined contribution, what we call an NDC. You make a pledge. All countries have to make a pledge what you're going to do about climate change. Whether you're US, China, Europe, etc., make a pledge of what you're going to do about climate change. It's called a nationally determined contribution. And then there's going to be a review mechanism. Every 5 years, this NDC is going to be updated. Okay, you raise your ambition every 5 years. Every 5 years you show that you can do more about climate change. And then there's going to be a review mechanism of how you're doing. And there's going to, I suspect there's going to be also a peer review mechanism and naming and shaming also. Okay, countries who don't do well will be shamed. Okay, in the press, in the media, etc. So every 5 years, probably you have to update their NDCs. Okay, then they stop taking every 5 years. Okay, to report where we are exactly. And this and the ambition will have to be raised until we arrive at that 2 degrees Celsius. Right. So there was about finance. What has been done also at Paris. We talk about finance. So at least $100 billion per year. Okay, will be given from developed countries to developing countries. So they should try to try to tap this money there. How we organize. Okay, the level of government, we organize to have bankable projects, etc. So that we then tap into this fund that's going to be available $100 million per year, okay, for mitigation and adaptation. So, and it's going to increase as from 2025. The question of differentiation was mentioned. Okay, so developed countries has to take the lead, but developing countries also have their efforts. Okay, and then also about loss and damage. Okay, so what happened in COP? So this is the first ever universal and legally binding global climate agreement. So, it's very important. First ever universal and legally binding global agreement, which was well. So it gives a clear signal to all stakeholders that we are moving away from fossil fuel. From 2050. It's not very far, maybe about 30, 40 years. Okay, we are moving away from fossil fuels. Why Copenhagen failed? Because it was a top-down approach. Okay, it was a top-down approach where the UN set mandatory emission limits, etc., which was not enforceable. In Paris, they changed the approach. It was more bottom-up. Now countries have to say what they're going to do. Each country. So shifted from a top-down approach to a bottom-up approach. This is very important. The nationally determined contribution. Mauritius has produced one. Okay, so very ambitious as per me. But anyway, at least we have one. So your nationally determined contribution. It's a pragmatic deal. Everybody's on board now. Everybody's on board. Whether you're developing or developing countries, show your pledge, what you're going to do. Okay? And every 5 years, this is going to be revisited and you raise your ambition. Okay? As we go along, but at least all countries should show their pledge. Okay? Previously, the protocol was only developed countries. Only developed countries. Now, there was always that issue about China, India. Okay? When we classify them, they like to call themselves emerging economies. It's good. Emerging economies. If you're an emerging economy, you should be also to have some pledge, for example. Okay? So I think this is what the French diplomacy was very good at, is trying to get everybody on board, okay, and everybody will have a nationally determined contribution, of course based on their national capabilities. So the biggest achievement in Paris was movement from action by a few, what happened in the protocol, to action by everybody, by all. Okay? So the transition from blame to collective will to act according to national possibilities. So China is the #1 emitter of CO2. So it's on board. China is on board now. Okay? US and India. So everybody's on board. Everybody has to give a pledge of what they're going to do. Okay? And this is going to be revisited every 5 years and the ambition raised. Okay, so at least, okay, you can say that we're trying to survive. So okay, it's an agreement. Okay, it's on paper. So what happens next now? Okay, what really now? What has been signed in Paris? What did we agree? Okay, now this is what I'm going to talk about this curve. It's very important. Okay, this is the amount of CO2 emitted per year. This is the time. This is the forecast. If you continue on business as usual, it's not good. We are not going to achieve that limit of 2 degrees centigrade. If you go on like this. Okay, if under current forecast, the global temperature will rise between 4 and 6 degrees centigrade. If you go on as business as usual as now, 4 to 6 degrees centigrade temperature rise with catastrophic consequences. So the objective is to limit it only to 2 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is the required path. We should pick somewhere in 2020, 2025, 2030, and then start decreasing. Okay, this is what has been agreed in Paris basically. If you want to stay within 2 degrees centigrade, you need a curve like this. We peak somewhere in 2030, and then in 2050 you'll achieve zero net emissions. This is what Malman agreed. Okay, so it's a profound change in the economy, okay, of the world that we're talking about. We're talking basically about changing from fossil fuel, okay, to low carbon economy. Okay, so this is what has been agreed, and next slide. One thing that's very interesting, because all countries are making this pledge, what we call the nationally determined contribution. All countries are making a pledge that they need to reduce their emissions. How do you reduce their emissions? Renewable energy. So this is going to create a surge in the market. This is going to all countries making pledges that they need to reduce their emissions. What's happening is creating a pull in the market for renewable energy, for smart grids, for energy storage, etc. And this is pulling prices down. This pull prices down becomes competitive to fossil fuel technologies. So all these technologies, whether wind, whether PV, whether LEDs, etc., the cost is going down because there's a market pull now for these technologies, okay, to achieve your ambition, to achieve your contribution. So it's going to be the surge in market pull, prices will go down. It's going to be, this is what Paris is hoping. It becomes a self-accelerating process because of so many countries making these pledges, okay, you're sending the right signal to the market. The market, with more and more players will come in this market of renewable energy in terms of energy storage, small grids, etc. The price will go down, it becomes competitive with fossil fuel technologies, so therefore they will shift to this low carbon technology. So this is what is being hoped in the near future, that to have this self-accelerating process. Okay, so now opportunities for Mauritius quickly. So there are opportunities for Mauritius, there are challenges, but we should always think about positive, but with the opportunities. If we are able to tap on these opportunities, it will be great. Okay, so there's a new low carbon sector evolving. In 2014, more renewable energy was installed worldwide than fossil fuels. Just to show you. Okay, that is a change in the landscape. Okay, more renewable energy was installed worldwide than fossil fuels. So you can see the emergence, okay, of this low carbon economy already in 2014. And estimated by 2020, this low carbon sector will be worth $2 to $3 trillion. Okay, the market. You can see the market, okay, that's going to happen in the years to come. So, deep decarbonization of the economy in the future, it is now inevitable with the Paris Agreement that we are moving to a zero carbon economy. By 2050, it will be zero carbon. Countries who innovate, take the lead, they'll be competitive. Countries who lag behind, just saying that, okay, we can't do anything, etc. We lag behind and then we have to buy these technologies. Okay? It's a question of we have to make some choices now. Okay? If you want really to tap into this market. Or you just stay behind, then all these countries innovate, and then you have to pay the price. Okay, whatever these technologies, whatever you have to buy them. Okay, so how do we decarbonize? Energy efficiency. I think Osman already talked about this. Already something happening. Okay, so energy efficiency, we should go big way in energy efficiency. In our industries, in our buildings, etc. Decarbonize electricity. Okay, go for low carbon electricity, PV, wind, etc. And then once we get a zero carbon, I would say electricity, then electrify everything, whether your transportation, your vehicles, okay, your trains, okay, your metro express, etc. It has to be electrified using the zero carbon electricity. That should be the way forward, okay, to decarbonize, okay, in the future. Thanks. Okay, so what we should do, focus on implementation of our NDC. Okay. Use the climate finance opportunity, we need to get organized. Okay, I don't know whether Minister of Finance, there's some cell, some unit, okay, to know where to get this climate finance. It's not in one body. The finance is everywhere. Okay, so we need to know where we're going to get this climate finance and to put bankable projects. Everything we aim to be doing is to decarbonize and become climate resilient. And what we need, if we really want to achieve this, what was in the Paris Agreement, for all countries, including Mauritius, is national long-term planning. I would say, frankly speaking, being an academic, I see that there's a lack of planning in all sectors. Okay, so basically, if you want to achieve a goal for climate change, we need a return to national long-term planning with some hard public policy choices. Some countries have already said they won't allow any coal power plant. Okay, it's Germany, Thailand, etc. Some countries have made public policy choices already. No coal power plant in the future. Finish. It's a public policy choice. Okay? So these are kind of public policy choices that we need to be taking, but we need that national long-term planning to achieve ultimately by 2050 afterwards. Okay, this zero carbon economy. But okay, national long-term planning, I would put immune to short-term political cycles. Okay, there's a problem that political cycles are short-term, 5 years, but here we're talking about 30, 40, 50 years. So there's a problem there. How do we reconcile this national long-term planning with short-term political cycle? Okay, Okay, we should have national long-term planning, which is immune to these short-term political cycles. Okay. Okay, so there are benefits if you go for mitigation in terms of economic, social, and environmental. And adaptation. These are what I call cost-effective. Look at our building codes, the way we design our buildings. There's a lot of opportunities there. Our infrastructure, invest in ecosystem services, talk about resource efficiency, weather alert systems. Okay, it's going to be very important if you want to adapt. Emergency preparedness, critical. But basically, we need to have better anticipation and absorbing shocks when they do come. The role of civil society is important in Rotarians. Okay, non-stake actors, what could we do there and there? Of course, play watchdog, see whether we're meeting our commitments. We just have made commitments. So, play watchdog role, okay, of this government respecting these commitments. But I think policies are one thing, laws are one thing, but people need to be inspired. Okay, the people should feel that they are part of a shared cause. I've been in the environment sector in the environment field for the past 25 years. People talk about the environment, they care about the environment only when they are threatened. Okay? I think no. What we need to do is give life to these policies. So we need leaders there. Leaders to inspire people, to tell them that they are part of a bigger cause. Okay? So I think lead people to the communities, adopt sustainable practices, and change production and consumption patterns. So are there gaps in public awareness, for example, that Rotarians can fill? It's a kind of question that you could ask yourself. Maybe there's some gaps in public awareness. Maybe our politicians are not really aware of what really is the Paris Agreement all about. What are the implications, okay, as from 2050, etc., what we need to be doing, etc. So I think there are gaps there in terms of public awareness, okay, that we should be filling in the code. Okay. All right, so conclusion. I think it's a turning point, Paris Agreement, it's a turning point in this fight against climate change. It provides us with a framework. Now we have to act. Okay? The framework is there at least. Okay? There are binding agreements which have been made there, so we can have that political commitment and build on this to have political action. There's an imperative to act, but there's also an opportunity to act from Mauritius. I think there's an opportunity there, but of course we need that long-term planning. Okay? If not, we're going to miss opportunities, okay, compared to other countries. Okay, last slide. I'll just end on this slide. I think those who have grey hairs or no hair, etc. Remember this photo? This was an iconic photo. 1972, the whole Earth. I mean, it was an iconic photo. It's the first time the picture of the Earth was taken by Apollo 12. It was Apollo 12. First time that the photo of the Earth was taken. When that photo came, it had a profound impact, okay, on people at that time. The first time, it shows the fragility of the Earth, the universe. It shows the interconnectedness, okay, of everything. Okay, and I'll just end on a positive note. 30 years ago, people were panicking about the ozone layer. The ozone layer, people were panicking about the ozone layer. But we had in Montreal Protocol, the convention, countries taking action together, and now the problem is more or less solved. So I think that should be the same thing for climate change. I think the Paris Agreement, it gives the framework, and we should be able to start. But there are hard choices to be made. Okay? I think, personally, people are not really aware of what has been agreed in the Paris Agreement. We're moving away from a fossil fuel. That's it. If we all really want to stay within 2 degrees centigrade. Thank you.